on the Jackson-Hines Library System. From the 2010 census, it was shown a public library was located within 5 miles of 99% of hard-to-count census tracts identified with the lowest response rates. The money distribution from the census is important. Once every decade, the government undertakes the massive task of counting every single person living in the United States. The answers from the census impact how the country plans for the future and the distribution of billions in federal funds to states and local communities. Plans are created using the data from the census. What does the census mean for my community? Well, fair representation determines U.S. House of Representatives seats. Emergency response helps allocate disaster resources. Your health helps hospitals and communities predict the spread of diseases. Infrastructure drives decisions for housing, safety resources, and community improvements. And program funding determines funding for programs like Medicaid and school lunches. By law, census responses are private and cannot be shared with anyone, including other federal agencies and law enforcement. The U.S. Census counts every resident in the United States. One of the most important things for many Americans that is determined by the census information is the distribution of seats in the House of Representatives. The data collected by the census determine the number of seats each state has in the U.S. House of Representatives, a process called apportionment, and is also used to distribute billions in federal funds to local communities. Every 10 years, the results of the census are used to reapportion the House of Representatives, determining how many seats each state gets. It's about fair representation. There are only 9 questions on the census. They ask very basic demographic questions. Who lives in the household? How they are related? Their age, sex, and race? Whether they own or rent their house? And their phone number. The census counts every person living in the U.S. once, only once, and in the right place. Everyone counts. Here's an example of what a census looks like when it's printed out. Note the following on the left side. The Census Bureau also conducts counts in institutions and other places, so do not count anyone living away from your home, either at college or in the armed forces. Do not count anyone in a nursing home, jail, prison, detention facility, etc. on April 1st, 2020. Leave these people off your questionnaire, even if they will return to live there after they leave college, the nursing home, the military, jail, etc. Otherwise, they may be counted twice. The point is, if you're alive on April 1st, you should get counted. If a child is born on April 2nd, that child should not get counted. The first question is the number of people living at the address. There is a follow-up question asking if anyone is staying in the home at the time of April 1st. The following information will be asked about each person living at the residence: their name, sex, age, date of birth, race, and their relationship to the person responding. Your data are confidential. Federal law protects your census responses. Your answers can only be used to produce statistics. By law, they cannot share your information with immigration enforcement agencies. Law enforcement agencies are allowed to be used to determine your eligibility for government benefits. Every employee takes an oath to protect your personal information for life. When you respond to the census, your answers are kept anonymous. The law ensures that your private information is never published and that your answers cannot be used against you by any government agency or court. During the 2020 census, the Census Bureau will never ask you for your Social Security number, money or donations, anything on behalf of a political party, your bank or credit card account numbers. There is no citizenship question on the 2020 census. The answers given are legally protected for 72 years. Answers given to the census cannot, by law, be shared with immigration enforcement agencies, law enforcement agencies, or be used to determine the eligibility of government benefits. The census is mandatory. You can also face penalties of up to $5,000 for not reporting or answering the questionnaire according to census law under U.S. Code Section 224. The census is mandatory and part of the U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 2. It legally requires the country to accurately count U.S. residents, whether citizens or not. The census questionnaire asks for people's names to ensure that each household member is counted only once. Call the National Processing Center to verify that a phone survey is legitimate. You can complete the 2020 census online, by phone, by mail, or from a door-to-door census taker. About 80% of the American households receive notices in the mail with instructions of how to fill out the census form online. The 2020 census is the first in its 230-year history that could be taken online. Only when you did not respond after repeated requests will the actual form be mailed. Households that had not responded online, via phone, or via mail by August 6th will receive an in-person visit from a census worker. The U.S. Census Bureau is ending all counting efforts for the 2020 census on September 30th, a month sooner than previously announced. That includes critical door-knocking efforts and collecting responses online, over the phone, and by mail, instead of the statutory deadline of December 31st, 2020, as required by law and directed by the Secretary of Commerce. Be counted. The 2020 census belongs to us all. If you know someone who has not yet responded, please encourage them to do so today online at 2020census.gov, over the phone, or by mail. The Census Bureau must deliver a report to the President of the United States by December 31st, 2020, for the purpose of apportioning seats for Congress, beginning with the 2022 election. Local details will be released beginning in March 2021, so the states can begin drawing new district lines. Do you need help completing the 2020 census? Stop by your local Jackson-Hinds Library System library branch for assistance. Be sure to use the hashtag #CountOnJHLS if you've completed the 2020 census. Thanks for listening.